From MTN News, this is Montana This Morning.
Good Friday morning. It's 5:30. Welcome to Montana This Morning. I'm Victoria Hill. Thank you so much for getting your day started with us. And good morning to Miller over in the Weather Center. You're excited about Friday.
It is Friday. Boom.
Also cautious about that heat.
Yeah, not only do we have the heat today that we dealt with yesterday, we also add in the factor of severe weather this afternoon into the evening. So it could be a bumpy ride for your Friday as we head into the weekend. It's a beautiful start this morning here. A nice shot of the sunrise, courtesy of the Stockman Bank Weather Cam. 74 right now in Billings. We should be around 50 to start this morning. So just showed you just how hot it's going to be today. Humidity sitting at 37%. Winds out of the southwest at about 15 miles an hour. Look at those highs today. A lot of 90s, upper 90s across the board. We'll even see 100. Gray Bull, Forsyth has a chance to get there. We could see some more records fall today. Not in Billings, though. We'd have to hit 101 to tie the record. I think we're going to fall just shy of that, but still 98. It is going to be hot out there. And then those thunderstorms start to roll in a little bit later on this afternoon, may bring those temperatures down. And the biggest concern is going to be those gusty winds. We could see gusts 40, 60, even over 60 miles an hour today through this evening. Timetable we're looking at between 3 and 9. And we'll tell you more about that with the main forecast coming up here in just a few minutes. Hot and maybe a bumpy Friday as we head into the weekend, Victoria.
All right, we're well warned, so we'll be ready for it. Thank you so much, Miller. Our top story this Friday morning, President Joe Biden is launching a major push to get more people vaccinated, not only in the U.S., but around the world. CBS's Ian Lee has more.
There are growing concerns that the nation's mass immunization efforts have stalled.
For all the progress we're making as a country, if you are unvaccinated, you are still at risk of getting seriously ill or dying.
The pace of COVID-19 vaccinations has slowed in recent weeks, especially in the southern U.S.
I'm just giving it some time. I'm not in a vulnerable group.
I think it was just kind of figuring it out, see how everybody was doing with it.
Mississippi, Louisiana, and Alabama have the lowest percentages of adults who've received at least one dose. They're far behind the states with the highest vaccination rates, Vermont, Hawaii, and Massachusetts. The CDC is warning of a rise in the number of young people being hospitalized with COVID-19.
I strongly encourage parents to get their teens vaccinated, as I did mine.
Officials are aiming to get at least one shot into the arms of 70% of American adults by the 4th of July. Right now, that stands at 63%. Many cities and states are using prizes and giveaways as incentives to get vaccinated.
Why are we doing this? It's because we know it works. This is a very, very common sense investment to save lives.
The White House says the U.S. is donating 80 million coronavirus vaccine doses to the UN for distribution to global hotspots like India. An initial shipment of 25 million doses will be sent immediately, the rest by the end of the month. Ian Lee, CBS News.
Administration officials say a quarter of the nation's excess vaccine supply will be kept in reserve for emergencies and to share with allies in need. Montana's small businesses were kept afloat during the darkest days of the pandemic, thanks in some part to federal loans. The Small Business Administration approved more than 46,000 separate loans through the Paycheck Protection Program, totaling almost $3 billion. Billings businesses were awarded $426 million in funding. A majority of the loans distributed in Montana went to businesses with just one employee for an average of $11,000 per loan. The most money awarded in the state was $10 million to a Missoula healthcare company. Officials say almost 2/3 of Montana's PPP loans will be forgiven.
In order to have that opportunity to stay vibrant and continue to make sales, continue to serve their communities, right? Serve products and services for their communities, really important in Montana.
The largest loan awarded in Billings went to architectural and engineering firm Cushing Terrell. It was worth over $7 million. The Billings Fire Department has a new chief. The current Senior Assistant Fire Chief, Pepper Valdez, will take over for Chief Bill Rash, who's retiring. Valdez has been with the Billings Fire Department for 22 years. City officials say he's the ideal fit, and Valdez is ready to take on the challenge.
So I'm excited, I'm humbled, and honored to be able to lead this talented organization. This is home for me, this is my community, and I think the city of Billings deserves the best. And I think we can provide that for them. And I think we can also raise that level of service. We can always tweak and get better.
Chief Rash will retire on June 24th and Valdez will take over on the 25th. Pepper and his wife Tracy have lived in Billings for 27 years and have 2 sons. Former U.S. Interior Secretary and Montana Congressman Ryan Zinke has made it official. He's running for Congress in 2022. It's not yet known which of the new districts he'll run in since they haven't been created yet. The 59-year-old from Whitefish filed his paperwork weeks ago, but just yesterday launched a campaign website. Zinke says the country's biggest threat is political division, adding leaders need to work to unite Americans and support the Constitution. So far, no other candidate has officially declared they are running for the new seat. Meanwhile, the 2 senators representing Montana and Washington, D.C. are weighing in on grizzly bears. Meanwhile, they have differing views on delisting the animal. They do agree science is key. MTN's Dennis Bragg has more.
The grizzly protection debate appears to have entered new territory following recent actions by the U.S. Fish and Wildlife Service to keep the bears designated as threatened species, and lawmakers in Montana, Idaho, and Wyoming adopting positions that bear populations are recovered and delisting should follow. And Senator Steve Daines has been more vocal on the bear front, too.
I've run into several grizzly bears myself just last spring when I was out black bear hunting. They're an amazing animal, but they are now well above the recovery targets. And there's just a frustration from so many Montanans around why can't we, as Montanans now, manage the grizzly bear and turn that responsibility to us, just like we did with wolves, because the science is compelling. The grizzly bear numbers are well above recovery targets. This is a safety issue. It's also an economic issue with the livestock industry.
But from the Yak to Yellowstone, conservation and wildlife groups are arguing more bears are needed, not less, to ensure complete recovery. As seen in this video from his office, Daines has spent his trips in Montana through the winter and spring, meeting with ranchers and hearing concerns about an increasing number of bears, livestock kills, and wandering far out from the spine of the Rockies into the plains.
And so the number of human-bear conflicts will continue to increase. The predation losses and livestock will continue to increase, and because of grizzly bears. Let's look at the quantitative evidence. They've set very clear recovery targets. The grizzly bear is now well above those targets, just like we had happen with the wolves.
Wolves raise an interesting point for Daines' seatmate, Senator Jon Tester, who led the way for delisting wolves over a decade ago. During a recent stop in Missoula, we asked him what he thinks should happen with grizzlies.
If they're recovered and the science shows it, we ought to delist them. And if they're recovered in the Yellowstone ecosystem and the science shows that, delist them. Manage them as they need to be managed. If they're not recovered, then no. And if we use the wrong management tools that puts these animals back on the endangered species list, shame on us. So what I'm saying is let science guide our decisions here.
While we haven't seen the bear debate in court recently, don't be surprised if that's where it's headed, especially with the state-level moves of late. Daines tells me he trusts the states to do the right thing.
So this is going to be something coming from not only just Montana, but also Wyoming and Idaho, as we are working together as Western states. And Governor Jim Forte has been a great partner on this. And this is going to take a push from all of us.
In Missoula, Dennis Bragg, MTN News.
Right now, a lot of eyes are on the new U.S. Interior Secretary, Deb Haaland, to see what course she may chart in the grizzly protection debate. In crime news, multiple suspects were taken into custody for leading Yellowstone County Sheriff's deputies on a high-speed chase in a stolen vehicle. A deputy spotted the stolen vehicle near Johnson Lane in Lockwood and tried to pull it over, sparking the pursuit. The department's helicopter joined the chase as the suspect vehicle headed east on Highway 87. Suspect names and their charges have not been released. Some sad news to report this morning. The U.S. Forest Service confirms the death of a wildland firefighter from Cody, Wyoming. Tim Hart died while fighting a fire in New Mexico. He began his wildland firefighting career in 2006 and has served multiple leadership roles. He joined a crew in West Yellowstone in 2019 as a smoke jumper squad leader and most recently served as a spotter. In national news, ransomware attacks have become more frequent and high-profile, targeting a wide range of industries, from a major fuel pipeline to a Massachusetts ferry service. CBS's Laura Podesta has more on how federal officials are stepping up efforts to combat the growing threat.
The U.S. Department of Justice says it will now handle cyber attacks with the same priority as terrorism. The move follows a number of recent assaults, including those on the world's largest meat processing company and the Colonial Pipeline. The DOJ noted the destructive and devastating consequences the attacks are having on critical infrastructure. The assaults on the pipeline and meat processing plants have both been linked to hackers likely based in Russia.
If it's all coming from Russia, the criminal element within Russia, we got to put pressure on Putin to eliminate his criminal elements over there. And if he doesn't do it, we got to put sanctions on him.
President Biden is expected to meet with Russian President Vladimir Putin in less than 2 weeks.
Mr. President, will you retaliate against Russia for this latest ransomware attack?
We're looking closely at that issue.
Here in New York City, the subway system suffered a cyber attack in April. The New York Times reports that hack was linked to China and the damage was contained.
Another ransomware assault Wednesday hit Massachusetts Steamship Authority, which runs ferries to Nantucket and Martha's Vineyard. The White House has issued an extraordinary warning to American companies to beef up their cybersecurity because no company is safe. Laura Podesta, CBS News.
Experts say cutting off the flow of the millions in stolen money or Bitcoin is key to disrupting the hacking organizations. Former Vice President Mike Pence made his most extensive comments to date on the January 6th attack on the U.S. Capitol. Pence said he wasn't sure he and the former president would ever see eye to eye on what happened January 6th. Some rioters who stormed the Capitol chanted, "Hang Mike Pence," after he said he did not have the power to overturn Joe Biden's win. Pence did praise the former president during his speech in New Hampshire. He said he will always be proud of what we accomplished for the American people over the last 4 years. The FBI has opened an investigation into U.S. Postmaster General Louis DeJoy. The probe centers on political fundraising activity when he was in the private sector. Former employees of the company previously run by DeJoy said they were pressured to donate to GOP candidates, then reimbursed through bonuses. DeJoy denies violating any laws. Today, Republicans are expected to announce another counter-proposal as infrastructure negotiations with the White House continue. President Biden will meet with the GOP-led negotiator on infrastructure today at the White House. The meeting comes a day after the president lowered his initial asking price by $700 million, getting it down to $1 trillion. Paying for the infrastructure package has been the main sticking point in negotiations. Republicans want to use unspent COVID relief funds to avoid raising the corporate tax rate. A dramatic surge in lumber prices is making the dream of home ownership harder to achieve for many Americans. A big increase in home renovations during the pandemic drove up demand, and as CBS's Maria Villarreal reports, sawmills have had trouble keeping up.
Hard to tell from this view, but Bob Dixon's Southeast Alabama mill is considered small by industry standards.
The whole game is to get this in somebody else's shed, not mine.
He says logistical issues like staffing and delivery are making it hard to respond to the increase in lumber demand.
The issue now with employees being paid to stay at home, it's not just our industry, it's everywhere you go.
In addition to the logistical hurdles, mills are also facing soaring demands for home renovations. The result? Lumber prices have tripled in the last 12 months since April, adding roughly $36,000 to the price of a new home.
It's tough.
Birmingham builder Alicia Huey says higher prices threaten her business and price homeowners out of the market.
So if this is going up for you, I would imagine then that cost gets pushed onto the homeowner?
It does. Right now, I can't tell anybody how much a house is going to cost.
What does that do to the American dream?
Kills it.
The ripple effect now reaching families that need help the most. The nonprofit Habitat for Humanity no longer taking applications in Birmingham. Industry expert Paul Yonkes says at the start of the pandemic, mill operators and home builders scaled back to prepare for a recession that never came.
We saw people wanting to move out of the cities and purchase new homes. We saw people wanting to add on and make improvements to their homes. So that strong surge in demand, at the same time we saw production and buying decline, is really what drove these prices so high.
That industry expert we spoke with said prices are already starting to come down, and we should see a significant decrease in the fall when demand usually comes down as well. But he did warn, do not expect those pre-pandemic prices. Mireya Villarreal, CBS News, just outside Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you so much for starting your day with us here on Montana This Morning.